Hey everyone, welcome into a special Dom Time tonight. In studio with me momentarily is Steve Cardasco, the principal of the Cardasco Financial Network. You hear him on my radio station. Well, I'm part of the station on Talk Radio 1210. And Steve Cardasco is someone with wide experience around creating wealth, creating individual wealth, but he also works nationally on the big ticket, the big issues, debt, the fiscal cliff, the debt ceiling that we're talking about now. He's read in places like The Street and Newsmax. He does a TV show for them. Steve, thanks for joining us tonight.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks for having me.
Well, Steve, the thing that I like to start off with, though, rather than just this big picture stuff, recently you wrote a piece, two people that are your listeners gave you their tax returns, which is pretty amazing stuff. One guy was a cop, I think, with a wife and had about $80,000 in income. The other was a business owner. Because underpinning this whole big thing, when you get away from the weeds and the minutia, is the big fairness debate. And President Obama has won the first round, I think, in that he got to tax people over $400,000 a year, even though it makes, in my view, and the view of economists, no difference in where we are with the debt. So tell us about those two tax returns and your sense of that issue weighing fairness.
Oh, it was interesting. City worker, we won't say whether it was a cop or not, but it was somebody who worked for the city of Philadelphia. Right. And we had a bunch of tax returns in, but I happened to grab these two because I thought it was of interest to the public. And one was a business owner who was sort of tied to the construction industry, producing product that contractors would use. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting because the business owner has worked every Christmas Eve. The business owner tends to have a lot of money tied up in his business, very little saved outside the business, and goes to bed scared every night. The city worker makes less, $80,000, comparatively to $400,000 to the business owner. But when it came down to paying taxes with deductions and things like that, both had 2.2 kids. They lived within 10 miles of each other. You know, one in northeast Philadelphia, the other just over the line in Huntingdon Valley, so they were relatively close to each other. The city worker paid about $4,000 in tax, and the business owner paid well over $160,000 in tax. At the end of the day, the business owner paid 50 times more tax than the city worker. What was key here, though, the city worker also has a pension. The pension would pay him $54,000 a year come retirement time. That's equivalent in today's dollars of having about a $2.5 million 401k. So who's better and what's fair?
Sounds fair to me, right?
And we threw it out there on air, and it was fascinating to talk about. But what's interesting is when I posted it on thestreet.com, which is where I write, it got the least amount of views comparatively to other articles I wrote about the stock market and money-making ideas, because the public just gets numb to taxes and this whole tax fairness bit. I think people personalize it. And what is it about my wallet that's going to affect my wallet? I don't care about you or him or that person behind the tree over there.
Well, I thought there was a big day on Friday. I don't know what kind of response you got when people, both Republicans and Democrats, because I've gone after Republicans in this, got that first paycheck, and there was the tax hike. I think it's a tax hike, that we're back to the same Social Security rate. There's a million other things we could do with Social Security. Why put that tax back in?
Well, it is a tax hike because it doesn't go into a lockbox for Social Security. The government uses it for other things.
Right.
And there was an effect. You know, people feel it. They got that paycheck and they know that they're not getting, that money wasn't there, or that money was there before. So whether people are cutting out a night out of Olive Garden, or whether they're,
there we go, that's it.
They're watching a movie in, whether they're going out, they're adjusting to it. What I'm alarmed about is that all the talking heads that are out giving their opinion on where the market and the economy are going are talking about an economy that's going to get better. We have the Federal Reserve talking about north of 3% growth, trending to 3.5%. I don't know what they're talking about because every American who is getting up to go to work just took a hit to their wallet. And we don't see enough going on in the economy to be self-sustaining without the government being part of it, to tell us that the economy is going to get better. And the market's running on this.
The other side that's interesting, though, and I think it speaks well overall. I know it's part of the, and we'll get into your theories on building wealth, and we'll take calls. People can call in about all this. That you told me that the market has never done better with the individual people putting into mutual funds back into the marketplace, the individual investor, not the so-called fat cat or sophisticated, the average American investor. Why are they doing it?
What's happened post-election?
Right.
We're seeing now average investors coming back to the market. And what we talked about this past weekend is that the first week in January, full week, we've saw the largest inflow to retail mutual funds since the market collapsed, since the high, which was back in September 2007. So the average everyday guy is now coming back to the market being numb that the market could be a dangerous place. To me, I'm looking at this and saying something doesn't smell right. This isn't passing the smell test because there's nothing sustaining the market other than the government manipulating the market through stimulus and pumping money into the system and using a language, a tongue, a podium to say that they're going to support the markets. That's what the administration's doing. That's what both sides of the aisle want to do.
Could they be buying into this? There's no day of reckoning. We're not Greece. We're never going to be Greece. Stop with the sackcloth and ashes. Spend and do whatever you want. Doesn't matter, it seems. You
That's
think
right.
People are believing that.
That's right. And we're going through this shift. It happens every 70 some odd years in society. And if you look at the history of our country, there's a fascinating piece in the New York Times recently on this, is that we as a society here in this country have a shift in the way we do things every 70, 75 years. And that shift seems to be happening now. The verdict's still out, but are we now coming into a phase where entitlements are accepted? It's a part of the system, meaning, look, let's just pump money into the system. The government's going to protect everything from bad days, and we can go on and just whistle and live happily ever after. And so there's an argument from academics. Are we now becoming this in our society? I've labeled it. I don't know. I don't think I've heard anybody else label it. I call it the Grecian formula. No offense, Tom. But, is it?
Olive Garden and Grecian formulas? We have no hairdressers here. All right, we got to go to a break on the Grecian formula here. Give us a call. Do you think there's no day of reckoning? We're the United States of America. We're not Greece. Steve Cardasco with us. We'll take your calls and continue talking with Steve here on Downtime.